Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. Gonna hit some buttons one more time. Ah, right. We should be live. Hopefully, that has corrected any robot voice. Let's see. We have Ember on the side table. We have Mason and Sherbet on the bed. We have Sky over in the play area. And we have Sammy on my lap chewing on my thumb. We're going to be continuing our programming project today. I'll show you where we left off last time. So we had finished positioning, or at least initial positioning, or kind of patterns, and some of the movement daisy chaining. So what you can see here is a 20-shot spread and a spiral, which I think the spiral leans right. So this demonstrates kind of where we want to be able to get with projectiles. We go in, and we're going to increase the spawn rate of the blobs just to stress test here. So the blobs are spawning 10 times a second. The projectiles are spawning every half second, 20 at a time, in a random direction. The reason I'm doing this is to demonstrate to some extent, an end state. This is the kind of weaponry that you would be what we intend for the weaponry to be towards our end state. Yeah, I believe the spirals are leaning right. Hard to say. Might have removed that. Well, nice. Nice and convenient, Don. Nice and convenient. Okay. So, I mentioned in my in the streaming notification that one of the things I forgot during this process was a way to what would it be called? A way to add modifiers and not just number and speed modifiers into the chains of movement and projectiles here. Additionally, having seen what we did with the pattern logic, I kind of want to do this for movement as well. So instead of there being an array of movement objects, we could instead have a linked list where each of them directly daisy chains into the next one. Now, we don't have to, so I'm probably not going to touch that just yet. But the goal would be to do things like, hey, here is the movement pattern as it starts, so that we don't have to chain it together. Hey there, aviation guy. Welcome to the broadcast. We're working on some game development, and at the moment I'm just talking over the current state of what we're capable of doing in the game. We're sitting at about 60 frames per second doing this. We can see a clear error in this state, and that's that we're spawning at 0. Do I have at 0 set? Let me verify. Well, this should be spawn on player. I don't see how this would scan as a girl. Well, I know what some people have asserted, but I didn't think I had overtly female secondary characteristics. Is it the open chest cavity? Common female secondary sex characteristic, the open chest cavity. I could see some of the hair, yeah. Okay, what's going wrong with spawn on player? Clearly that's not right. Get player location. Player location should not be returning 0. It's going to call player 0's position. Player 0 should always be the only player that exists. If player 0, then player 0 dot release. Thought player was an entity, so Mellow, we're coding a game. Let me just comment that. Show you where we are so far. Okay, I've got to fix this. I've got to fix this before I can show you. Players. That might have been my problem. Hey there, Zell. Okay, this should function. Players dot size is greater than 0, and so this is where we are currently. Now we do have a slight problem in that the player position is not reporting correctly. But last time what we got is kind of pattern modifiers. So we have the weapons are spawning in an arc, a 180-degree arc, divided into number of spawned plus 1. So if there's 3, they'll be every 45 degrees. It will add 1. Then they're moving in a spiral pattern off of that. And I think they're leaning right. I didn't check that again. But the weird thing is that they're spawning at 0 even though the player has moved. So I've got a glitch in there that I have to fix, otherwise it will bother me. And then today, what I want to look at is an adjustment to patterns and movement to make it so that we can add in modifiers to them. Such that I can do things like increase the speed. I want to move speed and scale outside of them and have them have a default. So that I don't necessarily have to have that built in. But at the very least, I want to be able to pass modifiers into them. so that I can do things like starting with the third step of the movement pattern, increase the speed or increase the scale, but keep the prior steps in place, or starting with the third step in the spawning pattern, increase the number that it will use. That way we can have some further controls on things like it will be a 5-shot burst of 3 projectiles, or it will be a 3-shot burst of 5 projectiles. Same number of projectiles, but it will change how it looks and behaves. Okay, so why this not work? Get player position. We're gonna put a pause right there. Oh, that's why. It's not calling it. Spawner. Oh, that's weird. Why you no call that? So we're getting in a position when we call into spawn. So we call get spawn position. And on... that's either going to return the next one and daisy chain it back. Oh, okay, here's what's happening. So the subsequent ones don't care about it. So like this one always returns 0. That's not actually what we want. So we need to change the get spawn position global logic here. Variable position to use is a vector2 to vector2.0. Okay, so we already have a tricky spot here. 0 might not be what we want. So we need to make sure that when we call the internal get spawn position, we do a vector2 Okay, so we have an existing position to use that we're going to pass in. This is going to mess with stuff. And then it's going to return... in general, it will return what it's given. Well, hey there, Copper. We're moving along. We're moving along. We are fixing stuff. Okay, if we're the last one, we're going to call into our own. Okay, here's what we got to do. Is equal to this. And then we're going to call a return on the next one. So we're going to get what we think the current position should be, and we're going to return... whatever the subsequent ones. The subsequent ones can override it. Which means we now need to fix all of the other calls to it. So we're going to have... where is it? Pattern spread. We have no change to get spawn position. But spawn at 0 needs that. It will always return 0. Spawn on player will return whatever the player's position is. And spawn on spawner will return whatever the global spawner is. Exactly, Tess. We have more to go today. Oh. Okay. Okay. Oopsie doopsie. If next positioner, then use that, and then return position to use. Hello, Destroyer and W King. Yep, we have Sherbet and then Mason this time. Normally, Sherbet takes over the Squishmallow, but this time the other way around. I think we might have all 5 visible, so let's do a quick check for folks here. I don't know if sorry, I don't know if I said, but hello, Destroyer. Yeah, we have all 5. So Sky up in his tree, Sherbet and Mason on the bed, Ember on the side table, and Sammy on the shelf. Very nice. Very nice. No, Sky doesn't get enough camera time. I think I hit the right button. There we go. Sky doesn't get enough camera time. All right, that should work. Okay, and then if we move over here, yeah, there we go. Fixed it. Okay, so again, what I want to accomplish today doesn't work. Let me just check here. See how I am making a game. And let me verify something here. The link seems to work, but maybe clicking it is misbehaving. Perhaps it doesn't work on all form factors. Doing well there, Michael. Doing well. Okay, so how are we going to do? So, game so far, again, summarizing, we have the basics for projectile movement. So right now, that set of projectiles is moving. Okay, it targets a random direction, and then it moves in that direction, and then it spirals. So the spiral will steadily slide out as it grows in a random direction. It's currently moving slower than it spins. And then, let's see, the scale on the spiral is changing slowly. So the spiral grows slowly. Then it spawns on the player, and it spawns in an arc. So we could change things to like spawn at 0. We just fixed the spawn at player, but if I say spawn at 0, it spawns right in the center. I could also, just for giggles here, we could spawn on spawner path, which is where monsters come from generally. So you can see them appearing off the edges here. Interesting, but they aren't spawning numerously like that. Oh, that's interesting. We got something broken again. Oh, no. So why isn't that working? Because that shouldn't influence it at all. Oh, I wonder if they're being sheared off. Okay, we can fool it a little bit here by looking at our constants. We're going to change the screen height and width to be 3840 by 2160. This will change the spawn path and the like. That doesn't really help. Just realizing that doesn't help. We haven't, Lunar, but that's an interesting idea. And hello, Sunfish. So why aren't these spawning as numerously as they're supposed to? We can see one of the flaws in the collision logic, how that blob took a while to get deleted. In fact, there's two stuck to the player right now. Is once they're inside the player, it doesn't always hit them. It's going to be akin to that or Vampire Survivors, Sunfish. Okay. We need to figure out why they're not spawning numerously. So if it's supposed to spawn, it calls into the positioner chain. And then each positioner adjusts the position. And we're supposed to go while we continue spawning. So we're going to go into our game logic here. And we're going to remove the enemies. This is all early code. This is all... how do I say it? This is all the architecture for the game. We can see some of how we want it to work. We want the weapons, instead of being fixed things that get better in a known path, like at level 10 this projectile behaves differently kind of thing, and instead the upgrading of the projectile is a matter of gluing modifiers to it. So in this case, oh, now it fires in a big spiral, now it fires more projectiles at once, that kind of thing. Okay, so then we're going to go into our spawner. And we should see this trigger once before this happens. No, this is physics tick, so this is where we want it to be. This should be the yarn ball spawn. If we look at entity template... Oh, no, this is the blob spawner. We need to get that out of there if we want to test this. Oh, no, we can get around that. That'll make it easier. We've got some different weapon concepts in place, but the weapons that we're planning on are still going to be composites. So, kinda. Everything that starts is going to be like cat toy themed. Okay, here's our first one. This should be the yarn ball. It is the yarn ball. We can tell because it's got the yarn ball sprite and a purple color modulation. Interesting. What is that? That and that. There's vestigial objects on the spawner. I'm going to have to take a look at that soon, too. Spawner has other entities on it. It has a sprite object. It has a movement object. These are artifacts from a prior form of the spawner. Texture is similar. So I'm going to have to remake the spawner code object here. But in any event, so we call in the first time, we assert, is there a position or chain? There has to be a position chain. So we tell it to start spawning. This resets the position chain. Then it's while it wants to continue spawning. It should want to continue spawning 20 times. So that's 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it is going through the spawn process here. Let's verify that we get a new entity. Yep. I'm still thinking about how to do the laser pointer. Laser pointer might be the first instance of a different drawing pattern, that instead of drawing an updated sprite by animation, it draws it with a beginning, a middle, and an end kind of process. And remembers its path up to a point, you know? Okay, if we look at the entity that we just spawned, let's say 175, okay, and then we do it again. Five, 9, 8, 5. Then again. Okay, target direction isn't updating right now. That's weird. Because the only thing that should be... so there's laser designator would be kind of like you're talking about, is that there's some indicator on the screen that will cause something to happen when it hits it. So maybe like a transparent vertical beam that roves around, and if it hits an enemy, something happens to it. An alternative, if we go like the Noida mod, would be that it's a fast-moving beam, like from point of origin to target. And that we draw it like a fast-moving beam or a straight line that appears briefly. Hello, John. Okay, so something's going wrong with the spread logic in this scenario. So we're going to play again. After 5 seconds, it'll trigger. Okay. We have an entity being adjusted. We have our bullet count. So we haven't spawned any bullets yet. Max bullets of 20. We can reduce this down. Yeah, that's a pattern there, Tass. Lunar. thinking about it, the red dot is actually a better thing to use. Because that's part of the joke, is the red dot. So it comes in, and it has a spread angle of 8.6. So we come in, and the angle to use currently is negative 81. Probably some floating point weirdness there, but... And then our target direction, we're going to rotate. So if we come out of this, we're going to... So we're going to loop back in. So this should be our... Okay, this is our second projectile. Get an angle to use. Okay, angle is narrowing. I think... I don't know if this is top to bottom or bottom to top as far as the arc. So the entity to use... Where's our entity? There. It currently has a target direction of 0.218977. Wait a minute. Oh. We gotta reload. That's not actually a point in code yet. Okay, so the entity, we've got the same spread pattern. Entity's current target direction is 0.06998. So about 0.1, almost 0.1.1. Or 0.11, I should say. So then it should rotate. We look at the entity again. And it is rotated. It's almost rotated straight up. This is not surprising. Unpause. Entity comes in. Should have the same original direction. Now it should be close to the last one. A tricky? Okay. This seems to be functioning. This seems to be functioning, which means I think we're running into the drawing logic going wrong here. So I think some of them aren't being drawn, and it's not choosing to draw them again. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the draw stopper here. Lies. Column to draw. We clear the image. Then we say if it's visible. We're going to quickly go in here and say visible is equal to true. It is not the drawing logic. All right, then in our collision zone, we have This will remove the delete it if it's off the edge. This would be very bad to actually remove. We're just testing something. We need to have the off the edge logic. There are the right number of Oh. Right there. That shouldn't be happening. That's weird. That's really weird. Let's look at our counts again. Spawn them faster. Every second we should be adding 20 entities. 20 entities, 20 entities. But they're all spiraling in general. We can see them being culled. But only the first one is visible. There should be way more of them when we do this. Let's add a new spawn pattern here. Okay, then we're going to have spawn on path because it's going to be very similar to this. Okay, so we're going to change this. To store off the local. Then, so we have a spawn position here. Direction that we want. And we don't need that assignment. The factory. Get player position. Direction 2. Get a spawn point. I hate daisy chaining them out like that. But we're putting it in initially here. Then I'm going to say the distance to use is a float, which is a random float range from 0 to it is within the distance defined by the corner of the screen. Not quite, but this is kind of where we want. We would not use this in reality. is a vector 2 as well. We can put player position in here. Turn player position plus direction to use times distance to use. We don't need these because order of operations, but we'll put them there for clarity. Did I mess something up? Spawn on spawner path. That's a thing. This is weird though. Oh, dang. Joe didn't like that. Hello, Colin. Doing well. We are doing well. Project exploded here. Something definitely... Spawner path is a thing again. Okay. I think what happened is because we copied the class name, the engine got confused. Okay, that's on spawner path. So now we need to go into the positioner pool when we're creating them, which means we need to go into constants first. We're going to put that in there. I'm going to reload the project. If you add a constant like that, you want to reload it. Okay, so then we go into our pool, our positioner pool. This. Randomly on screen, which will be spawn randomly on screen.new. So then we can go into our template. And instead of spawn on player, we're going to do randomly on screen. We need this spawn pattern anyway, so should be able to spawn anywhere here. This is odd. We're only getting one at a time. Okay, let's tighten up the spawn position here. 192. That was actually not right, what I was doing. That's what's going on. Within 2 squares. Alright, we're only spawning one at a time right here. minute. So in a positioner, you should be... This is very odd. Wait a moment. That was I just randomly on screen spawn in a pattern spread. I think I might have just been doing a silly here. All right, we are going to change it to spawn them more slowly again. Every 5 seconds. Okay, they're being spawned completely randomly, which isn't right. It should be using all for the same position. Okay. So when it's in... do... Had a little bit of a connection hiccup there. Okay, so what is happening here is I was every time it spawned, I was changing the spawn position logic. It shouldn't be doing that. It should get a random direction each time. I'm sorry, it should get the fixed position. Keep that just for now so I can keep the logic here. So then we have our direction to use. Now we need position to use. Use the same logic here. So when it is reset, every time it is reset, it will have initialize called on it. I'm sorry, at the start of every spawn cycle, initialize gets called. We then proceed to generate a position to use. For the rest, as long as that is still set, it will just return position to use. So at 5 seconds, we should get a spawn at some arbitrary position within 2. Storing that off indefinitely. How did I set this up? Initialize should be wiping it clean. Oh, no. Okay, I put that in the wrong spot. Initialize should be wiping it clean, but we do need to have... Start spawning is the one that we use regularly. So this is all in start spawning. It was remembering that forever, essentially. And it's still doing it. Get the player position. Hello, Daniel. Hello. Working on some glitches here. The distance to use is about a square. Player position is 0, 0, which it is. We're always working out glitches, Daniel. It is the circle of programmer life here. Okay, second time. Player position is different. And we should have calculated an entirely different set, which we should then return, but we're still spawning on 0. So when a positioner calls in to get spawn position, did I put it on the wrong thing? Nope. Position to use is being returned. It is being set every time we call start spawning, which we're overriding. Okay, we set out to spawn on a physics tick. We get a new position each time. So this will be our 0, 0. So the new entity position is 0, 0. Now we're going to go over here. New positions should be to the left. So now we step out. And we step in and we get a new entity position. Returns as 0, 0. Something is overriding that. Oh. Where's our pattern spread? Does not get a spawn position. Okay. And then, so in our positioner, returns position to use. By default, it should just return whatever it's given. Calls its own get spawn position and then calls it on the next one. And it passes in 0. Correct, President. This is our 46th stream of making this game. Building it from scratch in Godot. So first we're going to do randomly on screen, and then we're going to call into the spread function. Nope, we don't have a formal title yet. I have a project title, Nyanite Survivors, but that is not guaranteed to be the actual name. Well, in 23 more streams. So we are getting the correct position. So we're going to call into the spawner here. When we call get spawn position, we're going to step through that. We are off center. I'm not sure what you mean, President. We have a position to use as 0, 0. Why is it 0, 0? Hey, Drew. Doing well. We're working out a kink in our spawning logic here. Player position is off center. As soon as we exit out of this position to use in the prior one, start spawning was called. We have a position to use inside of randomly on screen now. And hello, Sans. We step in. We now have an entity position. We're going to call get spawn position. So the first one should be randomly on screen. So we step in. We get position to use. Position to use is 0'd again. Can anybody see the problem? Here's the variable that I want to return. It is a member variable of the positioner class called position to use. I want to return it in the getSpawnPosition function. The problem is right here. Hello, Kebo. Oh, you're right. The cats are gone. Oop. The problem that we're seeing is because I have we have a parameter to our function called position to use. The parameter, since it is a local variable, has precedence over the member variable. We're not returning this. We're returning this, which is 0. Programming. Hello, Sky. I do acknowledge you, yes. Coding a lot of times ends up like editing a paper, but where the text changes on a regular basis. Still doing it, though. Let's make sure we got it. Nope, we're still at 0, 0. So why... Oh. We didn't change all of it. We didn't change all of it. We still need to change this. There we go. There we go. Do I? I can't really tell what I sound like. There we go. Currently it's spawning within two positions. Okay. So we had a couple of flaws in the first logic. So we're going to put the actual logic in here. As float is equal to constants screen width to force it to be a float. Do copy XY screen height divided by 2. Distance to use is a vector 2 initialized to have an X and a Y that are randomized based on... Yes, I do. I acknowledge you, Sky. I do. Well, coding gets me has been getting me energized lately. Yes, hello, Sky. Sky doesn't demand intense attention very often, but he is quite insistent. Instead of crawling all over me like the other ones will, Sky will just walk right up and headbutt me. Like, hey, I need attention right now. The classic cat bro face maneuver. He is being cradled up against my chest and he is purring away. was the line? I can't remember what the comic is. They haven't. I stopped watching it because they weren't publishing it a lot. But the joke is aliens in normal human scenarios talking about normal things, but using terminology that is very accurate, but not the words that we would use. You know, so instead of a straw, it would be like a liquid drinking tube kind of thing. Uh, and one of them was them waking up and it's like, my arm hurts. Perhaps you slept on it wrong. And it was the one skill I thought I had mastered. You know, using the weird protracted terminology that they do, but okay, so it is -1 times max x and max x. Take the same thing, do it here. Oh, it's not a vector 2. That is the direction to use. This is the full vector. So we're going to actually do this as a vector 2. Move that. Those kind of things, Kevo. All right, so this is spawn on the screen randomly. And it's still preserving the choose a random direction and movement pattern, but it just picks a spot somewhere on the screen to appear. So let's go into the let's make it look cool operation here. Turn the blobs back on. Get our screensaver going. But again, this is the kind of nonsense that you'd expect from an end state weapon. It is flooding the screen with projectiles to an extent where things cannot really approach safely. The only thing that would save the enemies would be if they take multiple hits to remove. And we're currently still holding steady. Let's increase the blob spawn rate. Amusingly, I could apply some of this logic to the blobs and have them spawn in a spread. Shall we do that? We're going to set them up to 0.1. We're going to go to our... There's our templates here. There we go. There's the blob template. So we have move to player. I suspect the bats have some sort of similar logic. So we have spawn on the spawn path, and we're going to have spawn in a spread. This is actually a pretty good test. So one of the things we're seeing is multi-collisions. I haven't put that logic back in yet, where we can have where if a projectile hits something, it needs to hit something that cares about the hit for it to also register a collision. Otherwise, what you'll get is a single entity can eat an entire wave of them. So instead of randomly on screen, we're going to have spawn on player. And we'll do the same kind of path because they're spawning really, really fast. So yeah, this is the kind of thing that you want to reach in this sort of game, where you have waves upon waves of projectiles coming out. It's not certain victory here, because you can see they're encroaching based on the spirals. But it gives us an idea of what we're going for here. Since I can composite these together, we get some interesting results. And we're still holding steady on a really good number of opponents on screen. Pretty good. So we can see we've got about, I think we have like 400 entities on screen, and then I don't know which ones we're counting, actually. I think we're counting blobs left, projectiles right there. And then we have the entity pool size as the second thing. So if I move to the right here, they'll start spawning with me still. I'm going to restart it to make sure that everything's still working. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. So then we can go into our blob template. We can remove that just for safety's sake there. Just for giggles. Modulate is equal to color. Between 0 and 1. That should be all I need. I need 3 of them. Because I thought it would be amusing. Every time a spawn cycle triggers, it changes the color. I mean, there's a Noida example of this, the rainbow effect. I mean, yeah, we're currently we're being topical. Pride flag attack here. But what that also shows us is that we can mess with the internal template of the spawner. And that's one of the things that we want to be able to do is this template is local to this spawner. So we can edit this spawner alone without messing with the actual template. The default, you know? Okay. So we're where we want to actually start. The next thing that I want to add in is the ability for in the positioner chain. Whenever we start spawning, one of the things that I would like to do is have it able to pass some modifiers down. When it's initialized. So I think count and scale are two things that a positioner should care about. In these particular cases, as far as examples are concerned, scale would be like spread. There could be other modifiers in there. And then count is, it should be self-apparent. This would be changing how many projectiles in it. And the reason that we do this is to make it so that we can add in modifiers in the chain. So I could say this one, as soon as it's activated, everything subsequent in the chain has an increased scale or count. So like my earlier example today was if I have a burst of 3 shots and each shot is a spread of 3, I have 9 total projectiles. If I add 1 to the burst, I'm adding 1 more burst of 3 projectiles. If I add 1 to the spread, I now have 3 shots of 4 projectiles. Same resulting number, but there can be scenarios where that it is more advantageous to add one number or the other, or to not increase the number of a particular one. There could be. In general, you'd want that passed down, and what I might start with is that, well, we're just going to make it so it takes effect as soon as it is. So in the Noida sense, like speed boosters and whatnot, often you would put those at the start of the chain, so everything would be affected. But there may be scenarios where you want it to only be at the end of the chain kind of stuff for these modifiers. So we have the idea of passing modifiers along. I don't really want to have to hard code which modifiers exist. It would be kind of useful to have it baked into I don't really recognize that song, Kebo. I might just not know it by name. So how do we want to do this? If I hard code it into start spawning, we can then daisy chain it into the internal start spawning. Or even not daisy chain it in, because we know that each positioner would have access to that. And that the goal would just be to chain it into the subsequent start spawning. I think that's how we need to do it. could call start spawning earlier. Yeah, I think we need to do it this way, where we set ours. So we're going to call it in. We're going to set ours internally. And then that internal one can care or not. Ooh. Different thought. Okay. So here's my thought here. Instead of passing it along as part of start spawning, instead, inside of start spawning, it might mess with the subsequent one's values. Because the subsequent one, if it adjusted itself. So what we would do is a given positioner will obey these as it sees fit. So if it has something relevant to count, it will apply adjustment and multiplier. I think in that order. So this would be +1. You do this to like add one projectile or double the number of projectiles. If something has both, it applies the adjustment and then it multiplies it. I think that's how we do. And we'll add, the multiplier will be adjusted additively in the same way as the integer here. So if I add 1 and 1, I get 2. If I add 10% and 10%, I get 20%. I don't get 21%, you know? Scale multiplier again. It's only if it cares. Okay, so then the idea being, in start spawning, when it's initializing itself, it may call in and say, if I have a next positioner, I am going to relay these with potential adjustment. It feels like something I should have a class for, but I don't want to make classes if I don't have to, because I'd have to make a pool and I'd have to maintain them and all of that goodness. Is it out of the question? No. And now saying it, I think I want it. Because then I can pass them down through start spawning, where it might get one, mess with it, and then pass it along. In fact, let's still save it. So, depending on what you're doing, it changes how you might visualize the code. But one way to look at it is that with programming, you effectively have data and operations performed on data. Even if you're just dealing with a function, like a single void main, like linear program. So, like a hello world program that just prints hello world in a console. There is stuff that you're going to use. So, like the text hello world could be viewed as a string. And the thing that you're doing to it is printing it to the screen. And the act of printing it to the screen is I'm calling into something else that is going to receive that string. It's going to print it to the screen. So my function is to print explicitly hello world to the screen, and I'm using a tool that prints supplied text to the screen. So a way to look at that is to constantly break down what you're going to do into smaller functional pieces. If I'm going to open a door, I have to, grab the handle. I have to turn the handle in some fashion. I have to pull on the door. Then, you might then subsequently step through the door and close the door. You could break, instead of just saying, I open the door, you could break it down into all of those steps as well, and then all of those steps into sub-steps. As you're doing that, you determine where the data needs to live and where it's coming from. Where is the door? Where is the handle? How much do I have to turn it? All of those things become information as you're digging deeper and deeper, which is why if this were like a commercial product with a timetable and all of that kind of stuff, a lot of what I'm doing and a lot of what I've described would be paperwork before we even started. That's not to say that that paperwork will live forever. No plan survives contact with the enemy kind of thing. But you have an outline in front of you of how you want to break down the pieces, what the functions you need to do with those pieces, those kind of things. You have that planned out in advance. What I'm doing is largely by the seat of my pants with some rubber duck going on. So we do ours, we go in, and if there is a next positioner, rubber duck programming is effectively where you're going to call out what you're doing. Like, I go into a function and I'm wondering how it's supposed to work, or I'm wondering why it's not working. So I talk through, this part is supposed to do this, and this part is supposed to do this. It accomplishes it by doing this. And that's an opportunity either for the person who is acting as the rubber duck to comment on, like, oh, but that's not right. Look what you're doing here. My audience, chat. Or it's an opportunity for me, just talking out loud, to recognize, oh, I'm doing that wrong. Dot count adjustment is equal to count adjustment. Okay, so this is hard-coded in, but what I can do by doing this is I only have to set it in one place. I only have to do this pass along in this spot. I definitely sympathize with that kind of thing, Kebo. I am really prone to carpal tunnel. I like Final Fantasy XIV. If I'm not really careful when I'm playing it for a protracted period of time, my left hand will start to hurt a lot. Because of the way I have to hold the hand to hit all of the hotkeys. All 20 some of the hotkeys on my keyboard for actions in 14. A lot of console ports, the way that you have to move in them, the way that I have to hold position to move in them, get me on that front too. I see an RT48 has joined us and greeted us with punctuation. Welcome. Count multiplier. Let's give it to count multiplier. That here. What is this? Scale? Scale multiplier. Oh. It's not adjustment. I mean, that kind of thing in general is something you always want to be aware of. You don't want to get yourself into positions where you're getting like a repetitive stress injury or that there's something underlying wrong and you're just trying to, tough it out kind of stuff, because there can be signs of larger problems if you don't know particularly what it is, and ignoring it may aggravate the condition. All right, is not exploding on impact. This is good. Okay, so now our RT48 has changed their profile picture. Are you the one that used to come through into channel and say, like, have you done your assignments or something like that? Okay, so then if we pattern spread. So this is our initialize where we're clearing things out, essentially. Or we're setting what amounts to constants here. We're doing the math for this. Long term, we might not need it, but I'm going to stick with it for now. So start spawning, we reset the bullet count. Say X bullets is equal to get max bullets plus count adjustment times count multiplier count adjustment then so we don't need that in a knit. That's set up by start spawning. Then spread arc and spread angle. Start angle need to be calculated here. We don't really do anything when we initialize this guy, because in start spawning, all the clear happens. I think we might ultimately not need this. Well, that's good. I'm glad that I sound enthusiastic. Spread arc plus spread adjustment, scale adjustment times scale multiplier. We're going to do... So I've adjusted this down. A 180 is still kind of where I want it to be because we get a 90-degree spread by default, which goes further and further. We can always tweak this. So it can be a tighter spread, like that. We can add these to constants, but for now... Okay, so then... Now we need a term. So we have spawn patterns, we have spawn positions. These don't exist anymore. So you see, we've got our 3. So we've got our default on spread. And we can always add different types of spreads. We could make this a variable and then have templates for pattern spread, but I don't really want that just yet. So now we have the idea of spawn positions, spawn patterns. So pattern, I don't want to say modifier because modifier applies to everything as far as naming convention. Speaking of, RSIs here. Let me stretch my limbs a bit. Live the stereotypical life of a programmer / gamer. I'm very sedentary, which means stretching and periodically getting active is important. Okay. What do we want to call these? I think we need to call them modifiers. So I could say spawn modifier, but these are patterns. These are spawns. Because scale could even affect spawn randomly kind of stuff. Like I could have a scale multiplier that affects that, but probably not. So we could say pattern modifier. Let's do it. Ugh. Yep, stretching is a good thing. Within reason. I put a symbol in here. It's going to let me get away with that. We're going to rename you. We're going to be consistent. I'm going to call that a +1. So in all other ways, this positioner is in the same. Hey, Armillary. I think you came through before, didn't you? Is it Armillaire or Armillary? No. Is it like a sphere? Okay, so then in our own start spawning, which is the only thing we want to change, we are going to mess with our count adjustment plus equals 1. That's it. That's all +1 does. So then we're going to go into our yarn ball here. And we're going to add... Oh. We need to jump through the hoops. Positioner, pool, and constants. Hello, Yuki. Modifier +1. Movement. Positioner pool. So long term, I might be looking into having templates of or inherited classes of these, but we'll see. Have I played Danganronpa? I have played Danganronpa. I actually have some stream playlists of us playing those. The Danganronpa 1 streams, a few of them have had to be chopped up a bit because some of the companies behind it have been getting copyright happy lately. Reload the project. We got through Danganronpa 2. And by the end of Danganronpa 2, we were thoroughly done with that series. The ending of 2 was wildly unsatisfying. Movement. We're going to add a pattern that is +1. Take that +1. We're going to move it before the spread. Spread of 4. Hey, Karuru. Oh. Well, hello there. Welcome back. And welcome to anybody I haven't seen or anybody that is just joining us. Don't want to miss anybody. Okay, frame rate still holding steady. I have not played V3. I saw a little bit of the anime once. But after having played 2, like I said, I lost all interest, and several of the people in the stream with me completely lost interest in Danganronpa because of how 2 ended up. It was very much a nope, we're done. I do recall at the time we were playing that somebody kept referencing my character, like they kept referencing a robot character from 3 in regards to, me. My opinion on Factorio, I like automation games, at least in concept, but I don't like automation games with resource scarcity. Yes, hello, Nina. Hello, 3. Okay. So we have our +1. So next up, we're going to remove our... we're going to keep the move spiral. Have I tried Astroneer? I've seen Astroneer, I haven't tried it. The most recent one, I can't remember what exactly it's called, but it's something Spark. It's in early access on Steam. 100 Legos, Nina. Legos are painful, but shards of glass, not super fun. I've stepped on a roll of razor wire once. Oh, it was barbed wire. I stepped on a roll of barbed wire. Different thing. Not a good time. Not a good time. That's why I recommend big stompy boots to everybody. Solid decision, haha. PC explosions will generally slow down co-op gaming. Pattern modifier. Narrow. Pattern modifier narrow. We are going to say scale adjustment. No, we're going to do multiplier. Now, we don't want to do minus equals. Actually, minus equals 0.45. Okay, so let's be a little safer. We're going to reduce the scale by 30 degrees here. Well, we are going to take 30% off of our multiplier. So then we need to add this into our constants. Take that, and then we're going to do our pattern pool. Make this, we're going to do pattern modifier narrow. Just so. Okay, and then we're going to reload. Not that one. You like sherbet, Kebo? The currently visible tan and white one. So then if we go into our template, now we have a pattern modifier here. And another element. This is going to be another pattern modifier narrow. Put that above the spread. Okay, now we're going to do that again. And then again. Now, if you look, they haven't really spread much at all. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the spread here and we're going to move it above all of those modifiers. Spread is not affected, count is not affected, because it comes after in the chain. We have achieved Noida modifier. Excellent. Okay, now of course, we need a doubler, because we can't replicate Noida without unrestricted multipliers. There are a lot of words that come from weird places, too. Like, today I learned that diesel fuel and gasoline fuel are both named after people. They're inventors, as it were. And apparently, so diesel is a more straightforward name. The guy's last name was Diesel. Gasoline, though, is after a guy that was like Keseline or something like that. But we have lost sight of that fact. Decibels, units of sound, the word was originally decibel after Graham Bell. But it's just decibel now. The origin, the phrasing as name suffix is gone. Neat things like that. Neat things like that. Stuff you learn. Oh, yeah, that's what I was doing. Gonna have to check the editor and see if there's a way for me to change the font a little bit here. A quick test here. Ah, okay, excellent. We can zoom the code in, but it will let me squish some of this. Okay, so pattern modifier double. So, yeah, I think eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to add multipliers on them that are configured by templates. But for now, we're going to have some hard-coded ones. Because I don't really want a class for doubling. I want a class for count multiplying. And then I can have templates defined for this is a double, this is a triple, this is a halve, you know? Anyway, so we take +1, we take start spawning, and instead we say count multiplier plus equals 1. Then we need to go into our constants. So then we take double, and we're going to go into our positioner pool. Double. Oh. Just so. We reload. Then we're going to go into our template here. Once I find where I put it, there we go. Go in, and we have pattern spread. So now we're going to say double. So we should get 6. Yep. Okay, so now we're going to add in +1. So this is before. This should give us 8. Yep. So now we have 8, but if I move +1 below double, no, it should be the same thing. You should still get the same thing because I set it up to only be applied when something cares about it. Yep. Excellent. Okay, we have added in modifiers. So now we need movement modifiers. Okay, okay. So now we need movement. Now we need movement modifier. We're gonna set these spawn modifiers. I'm gonna rename that because I held caps down too long. Shift. Okay, now we need movement. Where do we put movement? There we go. Moving, position, targeting. Position is no longer about movement. I'm going to put you, yeah. Targeting is still about movement. Same with movement modifiers. Okay. First, we're going to go into the core movement object. So we have speed and scale here, which we adjust. Let's see. Let's look at our... We're going to close everything else. Take... Okay, speed and scale are multipliers. We need to turn them into adjustments. Generally not going to use a speed adjustment. We're going to use a multiplier most of the time. That's how we're currently using it with the speed variable there. We're going to do the same thing with scale. Just so. Okay, so then we need to go into the usages of it and make sure that we have these values accounted for. Adjustment. Times equals scale multiplier. Okay. So then we need to find where else we're using this. Frequency is equal to speed. It's actually 1 plus speed adjustment. Speed multiplier. Scale is tricky. Hello, dude. Hello. We're adding modifiers into movement steadily here. S curve. At speed adjustment equal speed multiplier. Misspelled that. Multiplier. Multiplier. And we never use speed there. We're going to use another line. May have to be a little more manual about this, but okay, let's move to player, move straight line, needs to be subjected to the same thing. Speed adjustment rate times equals speed multiplier rate equals delta. So then move spiral. I think we already got that in there. Oof, no we didn't. Okay. Adjustment rate equals scale multiplier rate times equals delta. Okay, that's the increase of the movement rate. Okay, now we add the angle change in here. Equals speed adjustment Any other modifiers we're making that are relevant? No. Okay. So at the moment, they're ignoring the values from the template, which is okay, because we want them to start to be built in to these other multipliers. So at the moment, in movement, we are defaulting those. So we should see a bit of a different movement pattern here. Which is okay. See, they're arcing, they're circling slower. Skia, I'm using Godot, specifically Godot 4.2.1 stable mono. The mono part is, this is the version of the editor that you could plug C sharp DLLs into as well. That's what the mono part is, the mono compiler. If you weren't aware. Switching over to Ember. I saw her twitch a little in her sleep. It was cute. Okay, so then modifier. We're just going to put faster in here. Create that. Oh, see, this is where it gets tricky. So now we need to go into entity movement. So what I'd like to do is redo this whole pattern for movement and movements. You know, call this and store it off. Call this, store it off, kind of thing. I would rather that they call in a chain, that we pass this in directly and then it pass along. But we might still have to call this in sequence. So this movement entity calls get target entity. It calls the next one, calls the next one, calls the next one. It is a learn as you go kind of thing. Yeah. Taco Bell is a fast food place that serves Mexican food that is only Mexican food in that it uses similar names to it. But Kebo, that means you've never seen Demolition Man either then? you know, after the great franchise wars, only Taco Bell remained, so now all franchises are Taco Bell. Now, generally not burgers. Sometimes they veer off in what they sell, but in some locations, you have Taco Bell and Kentucky Fried Chicken in sort of like a divided restaurant. So you can get, pseudo Mexican food and fried chicken at the same location. I like a limited part of the KFC menu. It's way too expensive, though. Oh, and I just noticed your statement there, dude. Yes, each type of movement needs to be coded in. Now, I am adding more variation to how I set it up, so it should be easier to mess with over time. But, yeah. Okay. But like I was mentioning, I want to rewrite the chain of events for movement. I'm totally gonna regret this. So get movement type. Ooh. Oh, I just realized something. We forgot to do something. Okay, so in all positioners, let's look at our positioner pool here. Lives up in the pools global. We forgot something. So when we create a positioner, we get the type based on it and we return it. But when we release it, we just add it into the pool. This is wrong. This is very wrong. Yes, yeah, all of the cats on the cat cam are mine. Let's see how many of them we can spot. You done napping, Ember? Or are you just, preparing for your next nap? Oh, no, I said her name. Here she comes. Let's see. We have Sky filling up the across the desk cam. We have Sherbet on the blanket. We have Sammy over on the shelf. We can put that there. And then Ember is on my lap. I don't know where Mason has gotten off to. He might be kind of up and right from Sherbet. Positioner type. Yeah. So then we go into the positioner itself. We're revisiting positions for just a moment because we forgot to do this on pretty much all of them. Yeah. That is bad. That is very bad. They need to be correct. Like, this will break badly if we don't do it right. So we'll get all of these in here. leave that in. Okay, that's why that's there. Okay, okay. Spawn randomly on screen. Spawn on spawner path. Spawn player. Spawn at 0. Modifier +1. And hello, not here. How hard is it to take care of 5 cats? The trickiest thing is generally litter box. And that's a matter of routine. But it is a critical part of the routine. You know, feeding them and whatnot should be standard. You should get used to the kind of rhythm of how much your cats eat and control food intake accordingly. But litter box is critical because if they don't have a place that they're comfortable going, they're going to start building habits that you don't want. And they can also be pretty picky. Like Rorschach, the big old tuxedo that I used to have, hated the organic, like, wood chip litter, or wood-based litters. It's like pine-based kind of litter. Very, very environmentally sound, very good, but he hated it. For whatever reason, it didn't agree with his little toesies, and he wouldn't use it. All the other cats would. They didn't care. He wouldn't. They're narrow. Fire. Double. There. S-curve. Straight line. Spiral. Functional. So now our pattern modifier pools should be properly set up. So we shouldn't be seeing movement aberrations going on here. Decisions about how emojis look are always kind of weird. Hey, it's working. So back to movement modifiers. Back to movement modifiers. So, in order to accomplish this, we need to move this whole structure to being similar to the spawn. So movement type is fine. Target entity. So what we're going to need is we're going to need the chain. So we have our current target entity in target direction. Whether we have set the target, we have our multipliers. We don't care about these anymore. So if we remove this, it should cause some issues here. And we're going to have one other place where it goes wrong. Oh. Huh. Oh, We didn't handle the move player. Speed adjustment. Times equals speed multiplier. Delta. U. Speed adjustment. Speed. I'm going to have to create a static function for this. This is kind of... This is a base rate, movement adjustment multiplier delta. It should always spit this out. That. Hey, Okaneki. We are progressing. We are progressing. We have the spawn positioning and multiplication, that kind of thing, all set. Next up, what we need and what we're working on is we're restructuring the movement chain again. And I say that because we are going to structure it as a chain instead of as a array, which is a non-trivial change. Okay, so when we're initializing them, we need to make sure that we set this appropriately. So when we're creating in our... Is it in our spawner that we're doing that? Not there. Okay, so when we're creating our movement entities, we need to do the same thing here. Where are we doing that with movement? We initialize the entity. What if we move the creation of its movement list outside of the entity? So when we initialize an entity, we jump through all of these hoops. And we set an initial position based on where we want to put it. And this is where we create the movement objects for it and get its initial direction. So if we look in Spawner, we create them, we force the position again. This is where we want it to be. So we force the position. We add it to the target zone. Then in the initialization of the spawner for the entity, we create these positioners. We could do the same thing. No. These aren't relevant to the entity. What I'm wondering is, could we do the same thing for movement? And we still have to create new ones. So we're gonna probably what's the word for it? Anyway, we're gonna make a function for this so that it's clear. We're gonna make a function for creating the movements and attaching them to the player. So we'll go from there. Okay, quick break. I will be right back. And I'm back. All right. This is factoring it out. I can't recall. always do the same thing. So. Okay. Okay, we're generally going to use that. You. Chain. It's a positioner. So up here in a knit, you can say positioner chain is equal to create positioners, entity template to use. That's really all it needs. Okay. All cheese pizza is every other pizza before you put the toppings on. Okay, so we have create positioners. Now what we want to do is create a movement chain. Create positioner chain. So this will create a movement object. Turn. I'm having to type around Sammy at the moment. Then we look at entity and we look at So we can have a set movement chain that will then do this logic here. This little bit here. Yeah. That's true of everything, though. Well, just about everything. Everything is water if it contains water, and you remove everything but the water. So first we need to do this part. You know what? We don't. We can just do this in the entity. Inside every person is a skeleton just waiting to get out. So we need to do similar to what we did with the positioner chain. Where we're going to create an array of them first, and then we're going to load them elsewhere. Okay. When you get arthritis, that's your skeleton getting tired of waiting. Okay, so we iterate over the whole collection. Now we have each of them. Now what we'll do is we'll load them in to the movement chain, which is kind of like this. Okay, so this creates a daisy chain of movement objects now. This will still work the same way. But the difference with movement is that they're in order for most things. Each movement entity commands the next one as far as what the current direction is and what the current target is. Yes. And so they'll return that ultimate call. Okay, so then we go into a movement. So even move will call the next one. Underscore. Thanks for joining us, Kevo. Let's do this before I... So we can save time here. It varies with your connection. Entity moving target direction. Have their own internal versions. So we're going to call them in sequence. So what we're going to have is okay, each time we're going to do our own thing, and then we're going to call the next one. Do our own thing, call the next one. Nice little linked list. So we need to go into each of the movement types, and now we're going to have potentially these three override functions. So we're going to move player, and this is move, but we're not actually going to use move. We're going to take all of the logic from move here. We're going to duplicate it into here. So it'll call this, and then it will automatically pass it along. Direction returns direction to use. In a minute. Wait a minute. Default entity and direction do that, so going to move right. We don't need to mess with that. But our target direction should return that. Move should do this. Okay. Then in spiral, we only have move and target direction. Target direction. Okay. And then in move, we do all of this. Hello, Abhinav. We are refactoring movement once again. I'm hoping I won't detonate it. We'll see how that go. Straight line just has move. Just so. But otherwise, it's going well. And I see... Looks like you're rating over... You rating over from yourself? Either way, I appreciate it. This curve just has move, same way. Layer, same kind of change. You. Okay. So all of my movement changes, you need the targeting too. Play random direction in mob. Mob doesn't have anything there. Random direction has move and target direction. The target direction is this. So, move is just this. It nudges it. No worries, little witch. Yeah. This is both a... This is very much a full refactor. Full refactor. Well, of the movement logic. And random mob doesn't do anything yet. Okay. And hello there, Rig. Okay, so now when we call movement, we're going to do underscore move with this. That, and that. If next movement, then next movement dot move with the same chain. Just so. Target direction is going to be is equal to underscore get target direction with these loaded in, that part removed. So if next movement, then resulting direction is equal to get target direction. These but instead we're going to use resulting direction instead of direction to use at this point, and then we're going to return resulting direction. Okay. Target entity is going to be very similar to get target entity, which we will then pass all of this fun into. Earn resulting entity. If next movement, then stuff and things. Dot target entity resulting entity passed in. So these will each cause a cascade when it happens. Call initialize, that's when we want to purge them out. So need to make sure this works right, because I think we're not freeing things properly here. Movement. If we're going to keep that, if next movement, then next movement, release movement chain. Then we'll call movement pool dot don't I have that kind of function? Create movement, create release. So release the movement chain. Yes. Its own pass it in, then return the result. Yes. So then in each of these, we should not be overriding the base function anymore. Get target. I really should make a better habit of periodically in the stream enforcing a break, and as part of that break, I should make an interim branch commit if we have reached a stable point. Because there's at least one moment today where it was like, yeah, we're done with a thing. And it is conceivably possible that I will have broken that thing. Or at least put ourselves in a broken state as far as movement. And as of just a moment ago, we can't go back now. So create our movement chain here. Really need to be a static. Doesn't need to be a static. Does need to be a static, or it might as well be a static. There we go. Called externally, so it should be an internal function. Naming convention in Godot, and a not unreasonable one in general, is if you can't declare a private function, have a naming convention for them, in this case, underline. If you're not supposed to mess with it externally, put an underscore in front of it. Since by their nature, variables in Godot in a class can be accessed from outside. I'm not doing that universally with variables, but eventually I'll have to get around to it. That, take that, and this. Next, it's the movement. Movements. That, 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 that. Chain. Not. It's movement chain. So when we remove, and then in. So that's if the entity is going away. Then we purge it, and then we make sure in a movement object we clear the next movement in it. So we daisy chain down it. So if we reuse it, we make sure that it's emptied out. And if the entity goes away, we also call this. Is there any risk to calling this again? Let's make sure that's there, and then I think we have an initialize up here that we want to do that in as well. Okay, no, this is when we're setting it up. Okay. Moment of truth. Okay, well, that's not right. Just moving. Should be no target entity. It's got to be the player. Let's simplify this. I'm going to go into our game. We're going to zero out the blob spawner. Target direction should have target direction is nothing at the beginning of the movement chain. It should not be correct. Step in. Don't care about target entity for this, target direction. We are in it's a default movement. What's the first one in the yarn balls movement? Random direction. Oh, that's why. Okay, definitely some hitching going on here. It's not quite right. look at that chain again here. We move, we do our own movement, and then we call into the next one if it's there. Used to be that we would iterate. For each movement, we would call this get the direction and then move. Call it get the direction and then move. Okay. Okay, yeah. So in movement, we are going to get our own direction here. Entity with all the same stuff. Let's use this. Does not have a delta in target entity. Get target entity here. So the entity could change as a result of this. So if I look at movement again, sorry, the movement chain. So we get the target entity by passing in the existing one, and then we pass that chain down. So you have a target entity to use. Let's look at move. Just move right. We're just going to return the direction. We don't necessarily modify it. We'll already have done this at the beginning and set any sort of targets that we need. So we trust target direction to do what it needs to do inside of it. Okay. But it still needs to go in sequence. To get target entity with that, then target direction. That will use current target vector. And this will use current target entity, current target direction. So move won't have changed this. So in our current pattern, so we still do this. Yeah. Still not right, but we're getting there. Oh. And then in entity, we don't do this. Still wrong. But the movement chain doesn't remember anymore what these were. So that's a problem. Because we've lost the ability to get them individually here when we're calling the cascade. And we can't return the pair of them like this. In any way, shape, or form. Because we need to preserve this properly. Oh, you need to preserve both of these. Okay, so inside movement, we need to have a concept called like last target. And each one of them is going to... It's just going to call down to the very end of the chain and tell it, what was your last target? What was your last marker? Because that's how it's going to go here. Target entity, target direction. We could still do a get target entity and direction at the very end. Okay, let's try that. So we call move, and then we're going to have chain get target direction. We should have... No, that won't work. We need to have something to get target entity, target direction. That should work. No, because we pass in the last one here. That didn't work that way. It's because we're missing each step. So here's this is where our problem comes in. Because get target entity is cascading. We only want to be calling the current one. The current one only cares about what it has received and then what its is. So right now, get target direction is cascading it down to the subsequent ones. But that's not what we actually want. We want to just call our internal get target direction using what has been passed into us. So when we call move, no, that's what we're doing. We're only calling our own each time. And then we pass it along to the next. That should function. Should be functional. So what are we missing? Because previously we would, for each movement, we would call get the target and get the actual direction. So get the entity, get the direction, and then we tell it to move. And in this case, we then subsequently say, if there's another one, pass that along and tell it to do its thing. So we're doing that. The thing that we're missing is that at the end of the process, we need to get these values at the very end of the process. So we're going to change, instead of get target direction having this, it's just going to return that. And we're going to say can't change that. Can't we? Still would need to know everything that it normally needs to know. So it might be recalculating things still. But that means we should be able to call it to set up it in the post fact here. Oh, they're doing they're doing PS5 and PC at the same time, Taz? For Monster Hunter Wilds? Did did Capcom actually learn lessons? If so, oh my god. Okay. Our problem is that our target entity in direction is potentially inaccurate at the end of this. So we need each movement entity to update a last action taken, a last target, a target direction. So we're going to call it in a movement. We're going to call it the chain target entity in chain target direction. Wow. Major game company actually paid attention to prior things and followed through. Because they said they didn't want to do these spaced releases on console and PC anymore in world. And it was disappointing that they had the jagged release on Rise. But it looks like the next major one followed through on their stated intent. Okay, so each one is then going to set its chain target entity and its chain direction to whatever the last one was after the move. Here. So we're going to do our move and say chain target entity and chain target direction is equal to current target entity to current target direction. Actually put that in the else. If there was a next movement, we set it. We set it to whatever the next movement was for its chain. Otherwise, we use ours. Then, at the end of the entity movement, after we call the move, we do target entity is equal to movement chain dot chain target entity target action. Movement objects have chains. on, work. Nope, still not working. Okay, so I fundamentally broke part of the movement sequence. That's going to be our target for next time. Oh dear. I'll probably look at that a little bit before a stream tomorrow. I think that means we're going to have coding streams for the rest of the week. I'm thinking that'll be my target. So we'll go from there. But we've got the positioning chain and the modifiers to the positioning chain in place. The next thing we've got to do is figure out how to get our movement logic back in line. It is unfortunate that we've broken things, but what can you do? We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But I hope everybody had a good time tonight. If you're new to the stream and would like to see more things like this, remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow. All those good things help the algorithms give you more stuff that you like. Our next stream is going to be tomorrow. We plan on streaming Saturday and Sunday as well. I don't have those streams up yet, but I do hope to get them up shortly so that you can wait for them if you'd like. But in any event, folks, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.